It started with a phone call none of us expected and maybe none of us were ready for. I was in a grocery store, half listening to my youngest complain about not getting the cereal with the cartoon wolf on it when my sister's name lit up my phone. Jenna never called. We texted, sure, sent each other memes and the occasional "you alive?" but we didn't call. Not since Dad's birthday 2 years ago. My thumb hovered over the green button and something in me knew. Before I said hello, I could already hear her crying. He's gone, Will. Dad's dead. I didn't speak. Not immediately. Just stood there in the cereal aisle, feeling like the ground had shifted beneath me in a quiet, permanent way. Heart attack, she added. They found him this morning. I didn't even ask who they was. Jenna lived 2 states over, and our brother Caleb was all the way in Seattle. None of us had seen Dad in almost 6 months. We kept meaning to visit, but you know how life gets. Kids, jobs, bills, silent resentments. You think there's time. You always think there's time. I flew in 3 days later. Jenna picked me up from the airport in Dad's old pickup. It still smelled like his aftershave, like pine and something sharper underneath. We didn't talk much during the ride. Just the occasional sentence, fragmented like our relationship. Caleb's flying in tonight. Okay. Lawyer's meeting is Thursday. Got it. When we pulled up to the house, the porch light was still on. It had one of those motion sensors that never worked right, so Dad just left it on 24/7. I stared at it longer than necessary, not ready to step into the house where I grew up and feel the vacuum of his absence. Jenna didn't wait for me. She walked in like she had a purpose. I followed. The inside looked untouched. His shoes by the door, his jacket slung over the kitchen chair, mail stacked on the counter. It felt wrong. Like he'd come back from the store any minute. Caleb arrived that night. We sat at the kitchen table, the 3 of us for the first time in years, staring at each other like distant cousins rather than siblings. No one wanted to bring it up, but eventually Jenna did. The will. Caleb rubbed his face. What about it? He updated it last year. Left us the house, the land. Everything. Everything? I asked. Jenna nodded. But there's a letter too. 1 each. I felt the tension thicken like humidity before a storm. Letters? She pulled out 3 envelopes from her purse. Our names in Dad's blocky handwriting. Mine was already open. She'd read hers. Caleb took his like it was a dead thing, carefully, reluctantly. I opened mine. The first line hit harder than I expected. Will, if you're reading this, I'm gone. But there are things you don't know about me. Things I never told you because I didn't know how. I looked up at my siblings, both pale, hollow. What does yours say? Jenna shook her head. You first. My eyes dropped back to the page. You're going to find a key. It's in the shed under the loose board. It unlocks a safety deposit box in town. You 3 need to open it together. What's inside will explain everything. Caleb was already standing. What the hell does that mean? Explain what? But we didn't know yet. Just knew that the man who raised us, who taught us how to change a tire, build a fence, throw a punch if you had to, had secrets. And somehow they were big enough that he waited until after death to tell them. The next morning we went to the shed. I remember the board instantly. Dad used to store firewood there. We pried it up and found the key wrapped in duct tape. A number was written in marker, safe box 39. At the bank, the woman behind the counter gave us a look when we handed her the key. Like she knew. She took us to the back, past glass and marble and hushed whispers, and unlocked the box. Inside was a single manila folder and a flash drive. Jenna pulled it out, hands shaking. The label on the folder read, "For their eyes only, 1993, the truth." My stomach dropped. 1993 was the year Mom died. No way, Caleb muttered. But I saw it too. The photo clipped to the front was of Mom. Except she wasn't alone. Standing next to her was a man none of us recognized, with his hand on her stomach. She was pregnant. The photo was dated March 1993. We were born in December 1993. And then I said it out loud, the thing that shattered us, there were 2 of them. We stared at the photograph like it might vanish if we blinked. Caleb grabbed the folder and flipped through the papers inside, his hands trembling slightly despite the edge he always tried to carry. Jenna said nothing, but I saw it in her eyes, recognition, or maybe something worse. I took the flash drive and slid it into my laptop, heart hammering in my chest like a countdown. The screen lit up with a single video file, confession, July 2015. I clicked play. Dad's face appeared. He looked older than I remembered, tired in a way that went past physical. He was sitting in what looked like his garage, a camcorder set up on a shelf behind him, and for a second it was just silent, him breathing. Then he started talking. If you're watching this, it means I'm gone. And I'm sorry. I never had the guts to tell you while I was alive. But the truth is, your mother, she wasn't just with me. There was someone else. His name was Martin. We all grew up together, me, your mom, and him. She loved us both in different ways. But when she found out she was pregnant, none of us were sure who the father was. My breath caught. Caleb swore under his breath and Jenna covered her mouth. Dad continued. We agreed it didn't matter. We were going to raise the baby together. But Martin couldn't do it. He left. Said he couldn't share her. Your mom, she broke after that. When she died in that accident, I raised you alone. But what I never told you is she had twins. You and someone else, Will? Your brother. I stood up so fast my chair scraped across the tile. What the hell is he talking about? I said. Jenna was shaking her head, eyes wide. Caleb leaned over, hitting pause. There's no way. We would have known. I replayed the last line in my head. She had twins. I looked at Jenna. Do you remember anything? Anything weird after Mom died? She hesitated. I was 5. I remember. I remember Dad coming home from the hospital alone. I remember asking where the baby was. And he told me there had been a mistake. I sank back into my seat. He gave him away. Caleb's voice was flat, stunned. He gave away our brother. We opened the rest of the folder. There was a birth certificate, no name, just baby boy Roberts and an adoption agreement dated 2 weeks after our mom's funeral. The adopting parents' names were blacked out, but there was an old photograph of a toddler standing next to a birthday cake. The number 3 was on top. The boy looked familiar. Not like me, but like someone I might have known. What do we even do with this? Jenna whispered. Find him, I said. If he's out there, we find him. Caleb leaned back in his chair, rubbing his jaw. And then what? Show up like, hey, sorry our dad gave you away but want to catch up? I didn't have an answer. But we had to try. We met with the lawyer the next day. He handed us the rest of the estate documents, casually mentioning the clause in the will that the estate wouldn't be finalized until all of William Roberts' children were accounted for. That meant one thing, Dad had never removed our brother from his will. He was still listed. Still entitled. Still family. That night, I sat on the back porch of Dad's house, staring out at the trees and the rust-colored horizon. Jenna joined me with a glass of wine. You ever feel like we didn't really know him? She asked. Like the man we called Dad was just some character he played? I nodded. Yeah. And now it feels like we're peeling back everything he ever was. And none of it makes sense. Caleb joined us after a while. He didn't say much. Just handed me a folder. I started digging, he said. And I found something. Inside were 3 printed pages. One was a court petition from 1994 requesting to seal an adoption record. The other 2 were background checks on us, apparently compiled by someone named Nathan Pierce. The last line of the second page stopped my heart. Subject has made multiple visits to Kansas City in the past year, likely location of half-brother, unconfirmed. He's looking for us, I said aloud. He's already looking. The next morning felt like standing at the edge of a cliff, and for once we all agreed on something. We had to find him. Nathan Pierce. The name echoed in my head like some half-forgotten dream. Caleb had already done a deep search. There are 3 Nathan Pierces in Kansas City, he said, spreading printouts across the kitchen table like a detective. One's in his 60s. One's 17. But this one, he tapped the middle sheet. He's 30, owns a used bookstore on the east side. 30. That lined up. We made the trip that same afternoon. Jenna insisted on driving, and the closer we got, the more my chest tightened. The store was a brick building on a quiet street, wedged between a laundromat and a shuttered cafe. The sign read Everbound Books. Inside, the air smelled like paper and rain. And there he was behind the counter, sorting a box of paperbacks. I knew him the second I saw him. Not because I recognized his face, but because of the way something in me snapped tight, like a string pulling home. He had Dad's shoulders. The same furrow in his brow when he focused. I stepped forward. Nathan? He looked up. Calm. Wary. Can I help you? I froze. How do you tell someone you think you're their brother? That the life they've lived might be built on half-truths? My name's Will Roberts, I said slowly. This is Jenna. Caleb. We believe you might be our brother. Nathan's expression didn't change. Not even a flicker. But he didn't deny it. You should come upstairs, he said. We shouldn't do this here. Upstairs was a cramped apartment that smelled of coffee and incense. Books lined the walls. There were photos, too, none of us but dozens of him as a child with 2 older parents. Happy from what I could tell. We sat. No one spoke at first. Then he sighed. I was adopted when I was 4 months old. My parents never hid it. They didn't know anything about my birth family. Just that it was a closed adoption. But I started looking a few years ago. Found the sealed court record. Couldn't open it. But then, I found a letter. In my dad's files after he died. It had your dad's name. William Roberts. He looked at me. And mine. Before the adoption. What did it say? Jenna asked. That I had a twin, he said. And that if I wanted to find you, I should start in Missouri. My chest tightened. Why didn't you come sooner? He shrugged. Would you have believed me? That shut us up. He poured coffee. We talked for hours. About Mom, how he'd never known her name. About Dad, how he'd spent the last year secretly watching our lives unfold from a distance. He came to the store once, Nathan said. Didn't say who he was. Bought a copy of To Kill a Mockingbird. Asked if I liked my life. And, Caleb asked. Nathan smiled sadly. I said yeah. He nodded and left. That was it. We drove back to the house in silence. Nathan in the back seat, staring out the window like he wasn't sure if any of it was real. That night, we stayed up late, the four of us in the living room, passing a bottle of scotch none of us particularly liked. Caleb finally broke the silence. So what happens now? You inherit a quarter of the estate. The house, the land. You're in this. Nathan nodded. I'm not here for the money. Why are you here then? Jenna asked. Nathan looked at her. Then me. Because I want to know who I was supposed to be. Who we were supposed to be. And because I think Dad wanted us to find each other. Even if he was too much of a coward to do it himself. There was a long pause. Then Caleb said it. The thing I didn't want to hear. You guys ever wonder if Mom's accident wasn't an accident at all? My stomach turned. What do you mean? I mean, he said. Dad said she broke after Martin left. That he raised us alone. But the timing's weird. She died 2 weeks after she gave birth. The same time he signed the adoption papers. And now we find out he never told anyone she had twins. Jenna's face went pale. You think he did something? I think, Caleb said. There's a lot more about our father we don't know. I started to laugh, but it caught in my throat. Because the truth was, I'd wondered the same thing. And that night, as I lay in my childhood room staring at the ceiling fan, I knew sleep wouldn't come. Because tomorrow we'd dig deeper. We'd find out what really happened in December of 1993. And something in me was terrified of what we might find. The next morning broke heavy and gray. The kind of sky that hangs low like it knows something you don't. Nathan was already in the kitchen when I came down, reading through the adoption papers again, his coffee untouched. I can't stop thinking about her, he said quietly. Our mom. I don't even know what her voice sounded like. I didn't either. None of us did. Dad never kept videos. Photos, yes, neatly framed and hung, smiling snapshots of a life that looked more whole than it ever was. But there was no sound, no laughter, no moving images, just stillness and silence. Jenna walked in, holding a weathered journal in her hands. I found this in the attic. She dropped it on the table. It was Mom's. The three of us stared at it like it might detonate. How the hell did Dad let this survive? Caleb asked. Jenna shrugged. It was hidden. Bottom of a box labeled Christmas decor. Tucked inside a stocking. Nathan opened it first. His hands were gentle, reverent. Like maybe the pages would recognize him. We read in shifts, passing the book between us like a fragile thing we didn't deserve to hold. Her writing was soft, looping cursive. In it, she talked about love, about fear, about Martin, about Dad. And then there was one entry that froze us all. December 3rd, 1993. I can't keep both. William says we can't afford to. I begged him, but he's made up his mind. I don't know how to stop him. Martin's not here. He won't return my calls. I'm so tired. I just want them safe. I just want them both. We sat in stunned silence. Caleb's knuckles went white around his coffee mug. He made her give Nathan up, Jenna whispered. No, Nathan said quietly. He took me. That's what it sounds like. He took me and made her act like I never existed. Jesus, I muttered. I wanted to throw the journal across the room. Instead, I flipped to the back pages. There were scribbles, names, dates, notes. One date had a red star beside it. December 17th, 1993. That's the day she died, I said. Car accident. Except, Caleb said slowly, there was never a police report. I blinked. What? I checked. Yesterday. I was going through Dad's files and there's no accident report. No insurance claim. No obituary in the papers. Just a note in the family Bible that says, Elena passed, December 17th. That's it. That doesn't make sense, Jenna said. She was 33. People die at that age, people talk about it. It's in the paper. I stood up, the air suddenly too tight in my lungs. We need to go to the hospital, I said. The one she was taken to. If there's a death certificate, it has to be there. We made the drive in silence. The hospital hadn't changed much. Same beige exterior. Same peeling paint near the emergency entrance. The records department was buried in the basement. The woman behind the desk looked half asleep, but she perked up when we said the name. Elena Roberts? She tapped at her keyboard, then frowned. That's strange. We don't have any file for her. Not under Roberts. Try Martin, Nathan said, almost without thinking. The woman typed again. We have an Elena Martin. Died December 17th, 1993. We exchanged glances. Can we see the file? I asked. She disappeared for several minutes. When she returned, she looked different, pale, guarded. That file's been sealed, she said. By court order. Sealed, Jenna echoed. Why would someone seal a death file? The woman shrugged. Usually only happens if there's a criminal investigation involved. We stood in the hallway afterward, stunned. So what now? Caleb asked. We find someone who remembers, I said. A nurse, a janitor, anyone who was there that night. But Nathan was already ahead of us, scrolling through his phone. Guys, he said, there's a name in Mom's journal. Last page. There's not a doctor. There's a social worker. Elaine Cooper. She wrote, Elaine tried to warn me. You think she's still around? Jenna asked. Only one way to find out, Nathan said. Because if someone tried to stop Dad and failed, we need to know why. Caleb nodded grimly. And what else they didn't stop him from doing. Elaine Cooper answered the door in a blue robe and curlers. She squinted at us through the screen door like we were selling something she didn't want. I haven't had visitors since 2008, she said flatly. So unless you're with the census or bringing me coffee, you've got 5 seconds. We're the children of Elena Roberts, I said. You helped her once. You're in her journal. Elaine's expression didn't change, but her hand dropped from the doorframe. You need to leave. Please, Nathan said, stepping forward. I think you knew something about what happened to her, about what happened to me. Elaine's eyes softened for a flicker of a second, and then she sighed and opened the door. Kitchen, she said. I'm not dragging out chairs. If you want coffee, there's a pot. Otherwise, sit and listen. We did, and she talked. Her voice was surprisingly steady for someone who'd buried decades of secrets. Your mother came to me in early December 93. Said she was scared of your father. Said he was changing. Obsessed with control. With image. That he'd been hiding money. Making phone calls at night she couldn't hear. She told me she had twins. But that William only wanted to keep one. Jenna leaned in. What did you say? What do you think I said? Elaine snapped. I told her to run. I offered her a spot in a safe housing program. Somewhere out of state. I even found a lawyer willing to help her file an emergency custody order. She was ready. Bags packed. Documents signed. She paused. Her hand trembled slightly as she lifted her coffee cup. She was supposed to meet me at the courthouse. December 17th, 9 a.m. She never showed. They said it was a car crash, Caleb muttered. But there was no record. Elaine didn't blink. That's because there was no crash. I called the hospital that night. They told me she passed away in the maternity wing. Maternity, Nathan said, stunned. But she already gave birth. Exactly, Elaine whispered. which is why I drove there myself. But when I arrived, they claimed no one by that name had been admitted. They said the file had been sealed, that the child had been placed in state custody. Her eyes met Nathan's. You were already gone by then. I felt cold all over. You think he staged something? Paid someone off? Elaine's smile was sad. I don't think. I know. William had friends, old military buddies, politicians from the county. He was respected. And your mother, she was a complication. She wanted out. He made sure she couldn't leave. We left her house shaken to our core. Everything we thought we knew about our father had cracked wide open. He hadn't just lied. He hadn't just covered up. He'd stolen a child. And maybe, just maybe, he'd silenced the only person who knew. That night, we sat outside Dad's house again. The air too quiet, too still. If we tell the cops, Jenna said, they'll reopen the case. And what? Caleb snapped. Dig up our dad? You think they'll find answers in bones and sealed files? Maybe, I said. Or maybe someone else still alive knows something. Nathan pulled out a photo from his coat. You recognize this guy? It was grainy faded. But the face jumped out at me like a bad memory, square jaw, military haircut, cold eyes. That's Rick Taylor, I said. Dad's old friend. Used to come to the house once a month. Said they served together. He was at the hospital that night, Nathan said. I found records. He signed in as a visitor. At 2 a.m. December 17th. Why would he be there? Jenna asked. Because he made it happen, I whispered. Whatever went down, he was the cleaner. Then we find him, Caleb said, standing. And we make him talk. The wind picked up, rustling through the dry grass. Somewhere inside the house, a floorboard creaked. Like the past still had breath. Still waited. I looked at Nathan. You ready? He didn't hesitate. I've waited 30 years for this. But none of us were ready for what we'd find when we did. Because Rick Taylor hadn't just been a cleaner. He was the architect of everything. And the next time we knocked on a door, someone answered with a loaded gun. The house was set deep in the woods, the kind of place you only find if someone wants you to, or if you already know the rot that's buried there. Rick Taylor hadn't listed an address in over a decade, but Caleb, ever the relentless one, traced him through a veterans database and a P.O. box that connected to a cabin near Truman Lake. We didn't tell the police. We didn't bring backup. Just the four of us in Dad's truck, rolling through gravel and tree-shadowed silence like ghosts chasing one last piece of a man we barely understood. Nathan sat up front beside me, his hand clenched around the photo of our mother, the corners worn soft by days of being held too tightly. Jenna was silent in the back seat, her fingers tapping an anxious rhythm on the armrest. Caleb checked the glove box 3 times for what, I didn't ask. Maybe for courage. Maybe for something more lethal. The cabin appeared like a secret whispered too loud, weathered wood, porch light flickering in the gray afternoon, a rusted flagpole with no flag. As soon as we stepped out, I felt it, that electric crackle in the air. The kind that says this place remembers violence. I knocked once. Twice. A moment passed. Then the door creaked open and he stood there. Rick Taylor. Older, yes, but unmistakable. That same jaw. Same dead eyes. For a second, none of us spoke. Then Nathan stepped forward. You were there the night she died. Rick's hand didn't move, but his gaze sharpened. You're her boy, he said, like a statement, not a question. Both of them, Caleb added, stepping beside Nathan. The ones our father split like firewood. Rick exhaled through his nose. He told me this day would come. Then start talking, Jenna said. Rick looked at her, then back at Nathan. Inside. All of you. I should have stopped it there. Should have said no. But the need for answers was stronger than fear. We followed him in. The living room was sparse. A wood stove. A recliner. A wall of military medals and an old photo of him and Dad in uniform. He sat. We stood. Your father, he began, was a lot of things. A liar. A manipulator. But he loved your mother. More than she ever knew. When Martin left her, he saw a chance. A future. But she was never his. Not really. And when she got pregnant, that fear of losing her, of sharing her, turned into control. He looked at Nathan. You were a threat to that control. Nathan didn't blink. So he gave me away. No, Rick said slowly. He was going to kill you. The room tilted. What? I said, breathless. He didn't plan to keep either of you at first, Rick went on. He wanted a new start. One child. One legacy. He asked me to take you both. Said he'd find a way to cover it. Said Elena wouldn't survive the grief. He wasn't wrong. But I couldn't do it. Not to both. He looked at Nathan again. So I took you. Forged the papers. Paid off a doctor. Found a family far away. She never knew. And when she found out she tried to leave him, Jenna whispered. Yes, Rick said. And that's when he made his move. I got the call too late. By the time I got to her, she was gone. I don't know if it was poison or smothering. But it wasn't a car crash. He staged the rest. Buried her in paperwork. Sealed files. Threatened people. And I kept my mouth shut because I thought maybe that was safer. For all of you. Nathan stepped forward. You still think it was the right call? Rick didn't answer. Just stared into the wood-grain floor like it might take the guilt from his hands. Then Caleb said it. You're going to confess. I'm an old man, Rick muttered. What good would that do now? It would give us back our truth, I snapped. It would give our mother her justice. The silence that followed stretched too long. Then Rick stood up, reached behind the cabinet. And for a moment, just a second, I thought we were dead. But it wasn't a weapon. It was a tape recorder. Old, dusty. He pressed play. And suddenly, Dad's voice filled the room. If anything happens to me, blame the past. Blame what I did to her. To them. I never deserved forgiveness. But I hope. Maybe one day they'll understand. The tape ended. Rick placed it in Nathan's hand. That's yours. The only copy. I said what I can. If the cops come, so be it. None of us spoke on the way home. We just drove. Through the trees. Through the guilt. Through the unraveling of everything we thought made us who we were. Back at the house, we sat around the fire pit. For siblings, bound by blood and broken history. Nathan held the recorder in his lap, unmoving. Then he looked at us and said, I want the land, not the money, just the land. I want to build something here, something true. We nodded. We didn't need to say a word. And for the first time in years, maybe ever, we weren't just fractured pieces of someone else's secrets. We were whole, still scarred, but whole. The fire crackled. The stars blinked overhead. And the ashes of our father settled quiet in the night, no longer hiding what they'd burned.